Anytime the gospel is preached, there's always a reaction to it. Sometimes a favorable reaction, sometimes rejection. And we're going to see that as we study the book of Acts in Antioch of Pisidia. There, Paul and Barnabas have the opportunity to preach in the synagogue. And so they preach in the synagogue, and then the next week they have another opportunity to preach. So it says in Acts 13, verse 44, and the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of God. So boy, oh boy, has word spread. And the whole city almost comes together. And it says, but when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy. See, they didn't even have to hear the message yet. They were already envious when they saw the multitudes come together. And it goes on to say, and they spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Well, what's Paul speaking? He is speaking the word of God, and they are contradicting it, and therefore they're blaspheming God. I don't even think they know they're blaspheming God, but they are. And it says, but when the Jews saw that, they were filled with envy. They spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said it was necessary that the word of God should first have been spoken to you. But seeing ye put it from you, and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. This was always Paul's modus operandi. He would come into a city, he would find a synagogue if there was one, and he would preach there first. And most of the time he got invited to not come back to the synagogue. And when he did, well, he would take those people that had heard and that were interested in what he had to say, and he would continue to evangelize the Gentiles in those particular cities. And so he says in verse 47, this turning to the Gentiles, he says, for so hath the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. He's quoting from the book of Isaiah when he says that. And that's from chapter 49 of Isaiah. And if you were to go there and look at that, you'll see that the prophet is saying that Israel's job is to be a light to the Gentiles. And so it has always been God's plan to use Israel to reach the Gentile nations. It's not for one particular group to know God and everybody else not to know God. For one particular group to have the truth and to hide it and to keep it hidden and to be better than everybody else and even to condemn the rest of the world. No, that's not God's plan at all. God's plan is to have the good news of his word and of his grace and of his glory go to the ends of the earth. And see, that's why God sent Paul to this particular place, because the message of Jesus is the message of salvation. It is the message of God's grace. It is the word of God. And every man, woman, boy, and girl, every creature needs to hear that message. And so as we look at that, the sad reality is found there in verse 46. He says, but seeing ye put it from you. Now they're hearing the word of God and they're putting it from them. He says, and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life. They judge themselves unworthy of everlasting life. They're hearing, but they've thought about it and they've said, nah, we don't want that. We'll take the law. We'd rather try to accomplish righteousness by our own works than to receive a righteousness that comes to us by faith. What about you and I? Where are we in regard to this? Do we judge ourselves unworthy of everlasting life? Or do we hear the message of the good news of Jesus and say, that's for me? I hope that that's what's happened in your life. God bless you. Have a great day.